Minji Park stood at the tall windows of Unity Station and looked out at the stars. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. It still felt like a dream sometimes. Humanity had joined the Council 37 years ago, and now they were finally being offered something special, something that would change everything. The station floated in space above Concordia Prime, a neutral world where all the galaxy's important decisions were made. Today would be one of those important days. Chancellor Vornis, the leader of the Valorian Empire and head of the Council, had called a special meeting. He wanted to offer humanity a place in the Elite Defense Pact. Minji walked through the curved hallways of the station. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past her. Some had scales, some had fur, others looked like they were made of liquid metal. After 3 years, she barely noticed anymore. She reached the council chamber and took her seat at the human delegation table. Chancellor Vornis entered the room. He was tall, with purple skin and 3 eyes that seemed to look everywhere at once. His voice was smooth and friendly when he spoke. Ambassador Park, we are pleased to offer humanity membership in our most trusted alliance. The Elite Defense Pact protects the strongest and most important species in the galaxy. With this membership comes advanced weapons technology, protected trade routes, and the full support of Council military forces. Minji felt a rush of excitement. This was what Earth had been working toward for decades. She smiled and thanked the Chancellor. The other ambassadors in the room clapped their hands, tentacles, or whatever they had. It seemed like a perfect moment. But later that night, everything changed. Dr. Heejin Lee sat in her small lab on the station, staring at her computer screen. As Earth's chief xenobiologist and intelligence analyst, she studied alien species and their behaviors. But tonight she had found something else. Something terrible. She had been reviewing encrypted council communications that her team had secretly copied weeks ago. It took time to break the encryption, but now she could read them. Her hands shook as she read the messages between council leaders. The Defense Pact was a trap. The treaty required human military ships to be stationed in remote parts of the galaxy, far from Earth. It required humans to share their defensive codes and systems with Council Command. It required human colonies to accept Council military bases. On the surface, these seemed like normal parts of an alliance. But Hyagin saw the real purpose. Once humanity signed the treaty, Earth would be defenseless. Human ships would be scattered across the galaxy, unable to protect their home. And then the Council would strike. Hyagin found more messages. 17 different Council species had secretly agreed to divide human colonies among themselves. They talked about humans like they were resources to be harvested. Earth's technology, its strategic position near several jump gates, its rich colonies. All of it would be split up and taken. She immediately sent an urgent message to Minji Park. Then she contacted Captain Do-hyun Kim, commander of the EDF Resolute, humanity's most powerful warship. And she reached out to Commander Ji-won Choi, who led Earth's special operations teams. They met in a secure room on the station at midnight. Minji looked tired but alert. Do-hyun wore his military uniform, his face hard and serious. Ji-won was smaller and quieter, but her eyes were sharp and dangerous. "Show us," Minji said. Hyejin played the messages. They all listened in silence. When it finished, no one spoke for a long moment. "How long do we have?" Do-hyun asked. "The signing ceremony is scheduled in 3 days," Minji replied. "Once I sign, the treaty takes effect immediately. They will move within a week after that." "We need to refuse," Do-hyun said. "Tell them we know about their plan." "They will attack immediately if we refuse," Ji-won said quietly. "They have 300 warships within striking distance of human space right now. Our fleet is not in position to defend against that." Minji stood and walked to the window. She looked out at the stars again, but this time they did not seem beautiful. They seemed cold and full of enemies. "I have an idea," she said slowly, "but you are all going to think I am crazy." The next morning, Minji requested a private meeting with Chancellor Vornis. He agreed quickly, probably thinking she wanted to thank him again for the generous offer. They met in his office, a large room filled with items from dozens of different worlds. Vornis poured her a drink and smiled with all 3 of his eyes. "Ambassador Park, I am so pleased that humanity will join the Elite Defense Pact. It is truly an honor." "Chancellor, I wanted to discuss some of the treaty details," Minji said carefully. "Some of my military advisors have concerns about the fleet deployment requirements." Vornis waved a hand dismissively. His smile never changed. Those are standard terms, I assure you. All member species contribute forces to strategic positions. It is how we maintain galactic peace. Your military advisors are simply not used to thinking on such a large scale. Humans are still new to this, after all. The way he said it made Minji's skin crawl. He spoke to her like she was a child. Like humanity was too young and stupid to understand what was really happening. Of course, Chancellor. You are right. We are still learning, Minji said with a sweet smile. Inside, she felt cold anger growing. Thank you for your patience with us. Vornis looked pleased with himself. He walked her to the door and patted her shoulder like she was a pet. In 3 days, humanity will take its rightful place among the great powers of the galaxy, he said. Minji smiled and nodded, but in her mind she was already planning something very different. That evening, the 4 humans met again. This time, Captain Doyun brought tactical displays showing the positions of Council and human forces throughout the galaxy. Here's what we know, Doyun began, pointing at the holographic display. The Council has been tracking our military for 30 years. They think they know our capabilities, but their information is old. Very old. What do you mean? Minji asked. Ji-won stepped forward. Her face was serious, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her voice. For the past 15 years, Earth Defense Force has been running a deception operation. We have been showing the Council exactly what we wanted them to see. Outdated ships. Slower weapons. Less advanced tactics. Meanwhile, our real development has been happening in secret. Hyejin pulled up more files on her tablet. The Council thinks our ships can travel at standard slipspace speeds. They do not know we developed quantum slipspace 5 years ago. They think our weapons use plasma technology. They do not know we perfected kinetic rail systems that move 3 times faster than anything they have. They think our targeting is manual. They have never seen our AI-assisted combat systems. Minji stared at them in shock. Why did no one tell me this? Security, Do-hyun said simply. The fewer people who knew, the better. Even ambassadors can be monitored. But now you need to know, because what we are about to do requires perfect coordination between military and diplomatic operations. Ji-won activated another display. It showed hundreds of human civilian transports and cargo ships moving throughout Council space. We have 4 million human civilians in vulnerable positions across 17 colonies. If the Council attacks, those people will be hostages. We need to get them out before the treaty is signed. But we need to do it without making the Council suspicious. How? Minji asked. We fake a mining boom, Hyejin said. We announce that several asteroid fields in remote human systems have shown incredible mineral deposits. We offer transport to any civilians who want to try their luck at mining. It will look like normal frontier movement. But those asteroid fields are actually near our strongest defensive positions. Minji slowly nodded. It could work. The Council would not pay attention to civilian movements, especially if they seemed motivated by greed rather than fear. And our military ships? She asked. They stay exactly where they are until the moment we are ready, Do-hyun said. The Council expects our ships to move into position according to the treaty. We will begin that movement. But our ships will never reach their assigned positions. They will disappear into quantum slipspace and regroup at coordinates the Council does not know we can reach. Minji looked at each of them. Her heart was pounding. What they were planning was dangerous. If anything went wrong, humanity could be destroyed. But if they did nothing, humanity would definitely be destroyed. When do we start? She asked. Tonight, Ji-won said. The mining boom announcement goes out in 2 hours. Civilian evacuation begins tomorrow. You sign the treaty in 3 days, and then we show the Council what humans are really capable of. Minji stood and looked at each of them. These 3 people, along with thousands of others back on Earth and throughout human space, were trusting her to play the most dangerous game of her life. She had to convince the Council that humanity was weak and grateful and completely fooled. She could do that. She had been a military analyst before becoming a diplomat. She understood strategy and deception. The Council thought humans were simple and emotional. They would learn how wrong they were. Let us begin, Minji said quietly. The Council wants to see humanity run. Soon they will learn that when humans run, it is not because we are afraid. It is because we are moving into position. The morning of the signing ceremony arrived with false sunlight streaming through Unity Station's massive viewports. Ambassador Minji Park stood in her quarters looking at herself in the mirror. She wore formal diplomatic robes in earth blue and white. Her hair was perfect. Her expression was calm and proud. She looked exactly like an ambassador should look on the most important day of her career. But inside, her heart was racing. Today she would betray the Council's expectations in the most spectacular way possible. Today humanity would stop pretending to be weak. Her communication device buzzed. A message from Captain Do-Yoon Kim. It contained just 2 words, all clear. That meant the last civilian transport had reached safety. 4 million humans evacuated from vulnerable positions without the Council noticing. It was the greatest rescue operation in human history, and the galaxy had no idea it had even happened. Minji walked through the station toward the Grand Chamber. Everywhere she looked, she saw celebration. Aliens from dozens of species lined the corridors, waiting to witness the historic moment. Holographic cameras floated in the air, ready to broadcast the ceremony across the galaxy. Musicians played strange instruments that made sounds she had never heard before. It was a party, a celebration of what the Council believed would be their greatest victory. Minji kept her face neutral and gracious as she walked past them all. She waved. She smiled. She played her part. The Grand Chamber was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed real-time images of the stars outside. Thousands of delegates filled the seats. At the center was a raised platform with a crystalline podium. Behind it stood Chancellor Vornis and the senior council leadership, all wearing their most elaborate ceremonial garments. Minji climbed the steps to the platform. Chancellor Vornis greeted her with a warm smile and a gesture that probably meant friendship in his culture. "Today we write a new chapter in galactic history," he announced, his voice amplified to fill the massive chamber. "Humanity joins the Elite Defense Pact, cementing eternal bonds of trust and cooperation between Earth and the Council. This is a day of joy for all civilized species." The audience erupted in applause. Tentacles, claws, hands, and stranger appendages all clapped in their various ways. Minji felt a cold anger settle in her stomach. They were applauding what they thought would be humanity's destruction. Vornis gestured to the podium. Minji stepped forward. The chamber fell silent, waiting for her speech. She had prepared 2 speeches. One that she had shown to council advisors earlier that week, and one that she would actually give. She began speaking, her voice clear and strong. "Members of the Galactic Council, honored delegates, friends from across the stars. I stand before you today with a grateful heart. Humanity has dreamed of this moment since we first looked up at the night sky and wondered what lay beyond. Today that dream becomes reality." She paused. The audience was hanging on every word. Vornis looked pleased. "The Council has shown us the vastness of galactic civilization. You have shared your knowledge, your technology, and your wisdom. You have welcomed us into your alliance and offered us protection. For all of this, Earth is truly grateful." More applause. Minji smiled and waited for it to die down. Then she continued, and her words carried a weight that only a few people in the chamber would understand. "But I want to speak about what humanity brings to this partnership. We are young, yes. We are newcomers to your ancient civilization, but we have learned many things in our time on Earth. We have learned about trust and betrayal. We have learned about strength and mercy. And most importantly, we have learned when to stand and when to run." A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. The speech was going in an unexpected direction. Vornis was still smiling, but his 3 eyes had narrowed slightly. Minji picked up the signing stylus. It felt heavy in her hand. This single signature would trigger everything. She looked at Chancellor Vornis. She looked at the assembled council leaders. She thought about all the encrypted messages Hyejin had decoded, all the proof of their betrayal, and she signed her name. The chamber erupted in celebration. Music played. Lights flashed. Delegates cheered. Chancellor Vornis raised his arms in triumph. On millions of worlds across the galaxy, beings watched the broadcast and believed they were witnessing humanity's submission. Minji stepped back from the podium. She walked down from the platform. She maintained her gracious smile even as council leaders congratulated her. She accepted their handshakes and tentacle clasps and whatever else they offered. All the while she was counting minutes in her head. The celebration moved to a grand reception hall. Thousands of diplomats mingled, drinking exotic beverages and eating foods from 100 different worlds. Minji moved through the crowd, making small talk, accepting congratulations, playing the part of the honored ambassador. At one point, Dr. Hyejin Lee appeared beside her, holding a glass of something purple that bubbled. "The evacuations are complete," Hyejin whispered while pretending to toast. Every human civilian is now in protected space. The military has confirmed quantum slip space positions. Special operations teams report ready status. Minji nodded slightly. She could not speak openly here. The room was surely monitored. Instead, she touched her communication device 3 times in quick succession. It was a prearranged signal. Across the galaxy, Council military forces began moving into position. They thought they were so clever, waiting exactly 48 hours after the treaty signing before beginning their attack. They thought that waiting period made them look diplomatic and patient. They had no idea humans had been tracking their military preparations for weeks. 300 warships from 6 different Council species began converging on human space. Their commanders were confident. Their intelligence told them human forces were scattered and vulnerable. The treaty had required human ships to begin deployment to remote sectors. Everything was going according to the Council's plan, except the human ships they thought they were tracking were not real. They were decoys, simple drones broadcasting standard identification signals. The real human fleet had vanished into quantum slip space hours before the treaty was even signed. On the bridge of the EDF Resolute, Captain Do-hyun Kim watched the Council fleet's movements on tactical displays. His bridge crew worked in focused silence. Every person on that bridge knew what was about to happen. They knew they were about to change everything. "Status report," Do-hyun said quietly. "Council fleet has entered position around human space," his tactical officer replied. "They are beginning preliminary scans. In approximately 12 minutes, they will realize our defensive grids are unmanned. That is when they will advance. What about special operations?" Do-hyun asked. "Commander Choi reports all teams in position. They can disable Council communications on your command." Do-hyun nodded. He activated his private channel to Ambassador Park. "Ambassador, we are ready. The Council is walking into the trap. Say the word and we proceed." Back on Unity Station, Minji stood alone on a quiet observation deck. The party was still going on below, but she had excused herself, claiming fatigue. No one questioned it. After all, she had just completed a historic diplomatic achievement. Of course, she needed a moment to herself. She looked out at the stars and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The Council's arrogance, their betrayal, their absolute certainty that humans were too weak and stupid to be a threat. She thought about Sun Tzu, the ancient human strategist. He had written that all warfare is based on deception, that when you are strong you must appear weak, that the supreme art of war is to defeat the enemy without fighting. The Council had forgotten that humans had thousands of years of warfare in their history. They had learned lessons written in blood. They understood deception and strategy in ways that the Council, with their centuries of unchallenged superiority, had forgotten. Minji activated her communication device. She opened the channel to Captain Kim. She spoke one word, her voice cold and clear, running across the galaxy. Everything changed. On 32 Council communication stations, Commander Ji-won Choi's special operations teams moved simultaneously. They had been waiting in position for days, disguised as miners and merchants and maintenance workers. Now they dropped their disguises and revealed their true purpose. The attacks were surgical and precise. No killing unless absolutely necessary. The teams disabled power systems, destroyed communication arrays, and locked down the stations. Within 8 minutes, the Council's entire military coordination network went dark. 300 Council warships suddenly found themselves cut off from command. Their fleet admirals tried to contact Council headquarters. They tried to contact each other. Their communication systems showed nothing but static. And then the human fleet appeared. 75 ships emerged from quantum slip space in positions the Council did not know were possible. They materialized at coordinates that should have required hours to reach. They moved with a precision and speed that Council sensors had never witnessed before. The EDF Resolute led the formation. Captain Do-hyun Kim stood on his bridge, watching as Council ships scattered in panic. "This is Captain Kim of the Earth Defense Force Resolute. All Council vessels, power down your weapons and prepare to surrender. You have 3 minutes to comply. This is your only warning." The Council fleet did not respond. 3 months had passed since the failed betrayal. Unity Station looked the same from the outside, but everything inside had changed. The Grand Chamber where humanity had signed the false treaty now hosted a very different kind of gathering. Ambassador Minji Park stood at the same podium where she had given her speech on that historic day. But this time she was not alone. Beside her stood Captain Do-hyun Kim in his formal military uniform. Commander Ji-won Choi stood at attention, her medals reflecting the chamber lights. Dr. Hae-jin Lee sat at the human delegation table. Surrounded by datapads and technical equipment, the chamber was full again. Every council species had sent representatives. But the mood was completely different from 3 months ago. There were no celebrations, no music, no congratulations. Instead, there was a heavy sense of accountability. Chancellor Vornis was gone, removed from power by his own people after the disaster he had caused. In his place stood a new Valorian representative, Ambassador Terex. She was older, with dark purple skin marked by patterns that indicated wisdom and experience. She approached Minji with genuine humility. Ambassador Park, on behalf of the Valorian Empire and the former council leadership, I offer our sincere apologies. What was done to humanity was unforgivable. We betrayed your trust. We attempted to exploit you. We failed in our most basic duty as members of this council. Minji studied the Valorian carefully. The apology seemed genuine. But humanity had learned to be cautious. Words are easy, Ambassador Terex. Actions matter more. What is the council prepared to do to make this right? Terex gestured to the other delegates in the chamber. We have spent these 3 months investigating the conspiracy. 17 species participated in the plot against humanity. Those governments have been held accountable. New leadership has been installed across the council. And we have created new laws to prevent such betrayal from ever happening again. She activated a holographic display that showed legal documents in multiple alien languages. The council charter has been amended. Any species that attempts to betray or exploit another member will face immediate sanctions and removal from the council. All technology sharing must be transparent and verified by independent observers. Military movements near member species territories must be declared and explained. These are not just words. These are enforceable laws with real consequences. Dr. Hae-jin Lee stood up from the human table. We have reviewed these new laws. They are a good start. But laws only work if people follow them. How can humanity trust that this will not happen again? A different delegate stood up. This one was from the Turavian collective, a species that resembled large birds with colorful feathers. Their representative had been one of the few who had privately opposed the betrayal. Trust must be earned, Dr. Lee. We understand that, which is why we propose that humanity take a leadership role in council security. Your intelligence capabilities clearly exceed ours. Your military tactics are generations ahead of what we thought possible. We need your expertise to prevent future conspiracies. There was murmuring throughout the chamber. The idea of the newest council member taking a leadership role was unprecedented. But after what humanity had demonstrated, no one could argue they were unqualified. Captain Do-hyun Kim stepped forward. His presence commanded attention. He was the captain who had defeated an entire fleet without destroying it. His reputation had spread across the galaxy. Humanity accepts this responsibility. But we have conditions. First, all member species must agree to technology transparency. No more hiding capabilities. No more secret weapons programs. Second, any military buildup near another species' territory must be explained and justified to the entire council. Third, we establish a joint intelligence network, where all members share information about potential threats. He paused and looked around the chamber. These conditions are not negotiable. Humanity has learned that secrets and lies lead to war. If we are going to be part of this council, it must be built on honesty, complete honesty. Ambassador Terex nodded slowly. The council accepts these conditions. We have prepared a new charter that incorporates all of your requirements. We are ready to sign it today if humanity is willing. Minji looked at her team. Do-hyun gave a slight nod. Hae-jin smiled and gestured approval. Ji-won's expression remained neutral, but there was a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. They had discussed this moment many times. They had prepared for it. Before we sign anything, I want to share something with the council, Minji said. I want to explain why humanity chose the path we did, why we warned you instead of simply destroying you. She walked to the center of the chamber so everyone could see her clearly. Humans have a long and bloody history. For thousands of years, we fought each other. Wars over land, resources, beliefs, and power. We killed millions of our own kind. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to extinction more than once. The chamber was completely silent. Everyone was listening, but we learned from our mistakes. We learned that revenge only leads to more revenge, that destroying your enemies does not bring peace, that the greatest victories are the ones where you turn enemies into friends. We learned these lessons the hard way, written in blood and suffering. She gestured to the other delegates. When we discovered your betrayal, we had a choice. We could destroy your fleet and declare war on the Council. We had the power to do it. Our weapons were more advanced. Our tactics were superior. We could have killed thousands, maybe millions, and we would have been justified after what you tried to do to us. Minji's voice grew stronger. But that is not who we are anymore. Humanity has evolved beyond simple revenge. We warned you. We said run, and when you did not listen, we defeated you without slaughter. We disabled your ships but saved your crews. We showed you our strength while demonstrating our mercy. Commander Jiwan Choi stepped forward to stand beside Minji. My special operations teams could have killed everyone in those Council communication stations. It would have been easier, actually. But we did not. We followed strict rules of engagement. Disable, do not destroy. Capture, do not kill. Our mission was not to punish. Our mission was to teach. Dr. Heejin Lee joined them. The Council made assumptions about humanity based on incomplete data. You thought we were young and therefore foolish. You thought we were emotional and therefore weak. But those emotions include compassion. That youth includes adaptability. You saw weaknesses where we saw strengths. Captain Do-Hyun Kim was the last to speak. An ancient human strategist named Sun Tzu wrote that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. We did not want to fight you. We wanted to show you that fighting us would be a mistake. And we wanted to prove that even when we win, we choose mercy over cruelty. He looked directly at Ambassador Terex. That is why we are willing to work with the Council again. Not because we have forgotten what happened. We will never forget. But because we believe that people can change. That societies can learn. That enemies can become partners if both sides are willing to be honest. There was a long silence in the chamber. Then slowly, one by one, delegates from across the galaxy stood up. They were not applauding. This was not a celebration. Instead, they were showing respect. Recognition of what humanity had taught them. Ambassador Terex stood as well. The Council has existed for over 2,000 years. In all that time, we have never seen anything like what humanity accomplished. You defeated us with technology we did not know existed. You outsmarted us with strategies we never considered. And then you showed us mercy we did not deserve. That is not just military superiority. That is moral superiority. She walked to the podium where the new charter waited. The galaxy needs what humanity has to offer, not just your technology or your military strength. We need your perspective, your experience with conflict and peace, your understanding that power without wisdom is dangerous and that mercy from strength is the most powerful message of all. Minji joined her at the podium. The new charter was displayed for everyone to see. It was not perfect. No document could be. But it was honest. It had real accountability. It gave humanity a real voice in council decisions. She picked up the signing stylus. This time there was no deception. No hidden betrayal. Just two species and many more watching, trying to build something better. For humanity. For Earth. And for the future. Minji said quietly. She signed her name. Ambassador Terex signed next. Then one by one representatives from every council species came forward to add their signatures. Each one knew that things had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. When the ceremony was complete, Minji stood with her team on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. It was the same view she had seen on the day she first learned about the betrayal. But everything was different now. Do you think they learned the lesson? Jiwan asked quietly. Some of them did, Doyun replied. Others are just afraid now. But fear can be a good teacher if it leads to respect. Heejin smiled. We gave them a warning they will never forget. One word that will echo across the galaxy for generations. Run. It means more now than it did before. It means that humans are not prey. It means that underestimating us is a fatal mistake. And it means that when we tell you to run, you should listen. Minji nodded slowly. She thought about everything they had accomplished. They were too shocked, too confused. Some ships tried to retreat. Kinetic rounds traveling at relativistic speeds tore through the vacuum of space. They were not plasma bolts or energy beams. They were solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible velocities by magnetic rails. The Council had never seen weapons like this before. The first salvo struck a Valorian heavy cruiser. The rounds punched through its defensive shields like they were not even there. The ship's armor, designed to withstand energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Critical systems exploded. The ship went dark, power failing across all decks, but the crew was alive. The human targeting computers had calculated the strikes with surgical precision. Weapons disabled, engines destroyed, life support intact. The Valorian crew sat in the darkness, stunned and helpless, but breathing. Across the battle space, the same scene repeated itself. Council warships that had been moving confidently into attack positions suddenly found themselves crippled. Human ships moved through their formations like predators among prey. Every shot was precise. Every target was carefully chosen. On the bridge of his flagship, Valorian Fleet Admiral Kessex watched in horror as his carefully planned attack fell apart. His communication systems were dead. Half his fleet was disabled within the first 5 minutes. The human ships moved in patterns his sensors could barely track. "Retreat," he ordered his remaining ships. "All vessels, emergency jump protocols." But the human fleet had anticipated that too. Small human corvettes had positioned themselves around the battle space, generating a quantum disruption field. Council ships that tried to activate their jump drives found their systems failing. They were trapped. Captain Do-hyun Kim watched the tactical display with calm satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Council fleet was neutralized. Now came the difficult part. Now came the message they needed to send. He opened a channel on all frequencies, ensuring that everyone could hear him. His words would be recorded and broadcast across the entire galaxy. "This is Captain Do-hyun Kim of Earth Defense Force. We have disabled your fleet. We could have destroyed you, but we chose not to. This is not mercy from weakness. This is mercy from strength. You tried to betray humanity. You failed. Remember this moment. Remember what happens when you underestimate humans." On Unity Station, Chancellor Vornis was still celebrating when the news reached him. An aide rushed into the reception hall, his face showing absolute panic. The Chancellor listened to the report with growing disbelief. "Impossible," Vornis said. "Our intelligence said the human fleet was scattered. Our intelligence said their weapons were outdated. Our intelligence said they could not possibly." "Your intelligence was wrong," Ambassador Minji Park said from behind him. Vornis spun around. Minji stood there calmly, still wearing her ceremonial robes. But there was nothing ceremonial about her expression now. It was cold and hard. "We knew about your betrayal, Chancellor. We have known for weeks. The encrypted communications you thought were secure. The secret agreements to divide our colonies. The sabotage technology you sold us. We found all of it." Vornis tried to speak, but no words came out. Around them, other council leaders were receiving similar reports. 300 warships disabled. Communication networks destroyed. Military coordination completely compromised. And somehow, impossibly, not a single council crew member killed. "You should have done your research better," Minji continued. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We understand deception. We understand strategy. And we understand that sometimes the best way to appear weak is to actually be strong, but hide it." Dr. Hyejin Lee stepped forward from the crowd. She had been watching the whole confrontation with quiet satisfaction. "For 15 years you have been monitoring our military development, or at least you thought you were. Every ship you observed, every weapon test you tracked, every tactical exercise you recorded, all of it was staged for your benefit. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see." One of the other council leaders, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish with tentacles, spoke up. "But the technology we sold you, the defensive shields, the power systems, the weapons, you used them. We saw them on your ships." Hyejin smiled. "We put your technology on civilian vessels and transport ships. Ships you could easily observe. But our military? Our military was developing its own technology. Quantum slipspace drives, kinetic rail weapons, AI-assisted targeting systems, none of which you ever detected because you were too busy congratulating yourselves on how clever you were." The room had gone completely silent. Every council delegate was listening now. The celebration had turned into a nightmare. Chancellor Vornis finally found his voice. "What do you want?" If you want war, we do not want war, Minji said firmly. If we wanted war, your fleet would be debris right now. Every one of those 300 ships is disabled, but their crews are alive. We could have killed them all. We chose not to. Then what do you want? We want respect. We want honesty. We want the Council to understand that humanity is not weak prey to be exploited. We are partners who will defend ourselves when necessary, but who prefer peace to violence. Minji walked closer to Vornis. Even though he was much taller than her, somehow she seemed to tower over him. You made a terrible mistake, Chancellor. You assumed that because humans are young and emotional, we must be stupid. You forgot that emotion includes things like determination, creativity, and the will to survive. You thought you could trick us. Instead, we tricked you. Another council leader spoke up, this one resembling a crystalline structure that pulsed with light. What about the treaty you signed? The Elite Defense Pact? Minji pulled out a data pad and displayed the treaty for everyone to see. The treaty is null and void under Article 7 of your own council charter. Any agreement made under false pretenses or with intent to harm a member species is automatically invalidated. We have complete proof of your betrayal. The treaty is worthless. She paused, letting that sink in. But here is what humanity is willing to offer. We will release your ships. We will restore your communication networks. We will return to peaceful relations. But only if you agree to real partnership. No more lies. No more sabotage technology. No more schemes to control us. The room was silent. Every council leader was calculating now. They had tried to destroy humanity and failed. Humanity had defeated them and offered mercy. The balance of power had completely shifted. Commander Jiwon Choi entered the room. She had changed out of her minor disguise and now wore her proper military uniform. Behind her came a dozen other special operators also in uniform. All council communication hubs are secure, she reported to Minji. All supply depots are under our control. The council fleet cannot move, cannot communicate, and cannot resupply. They are completely at our mercy. She turned to look at Chancellor Vornis and the other leaders. Special operations is one of humanity's strengths. We have been operating in council space for years. Your security never detected us. Your intelligence never tracked us. We have been invisible, preparing for exactly this situation. One of the council delegates, a reptilian being with green scales, spoke with grudging respect. You planned all of this. From the beginning, no, Minji said. We hoped we would never need this. We hoped the council would treat us fairly. We hoped you would see us as equals, but we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That is the human way. She looked around the room at all the assembled delegates. This is not a victory celebration for humanity. This is a lesson for everyone. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, but it requires honesty. It requires respect. And it requires understanding that strength comes in many forms. Captain Do-hyun's voice came over the communication system. Broadcast throughout the station, Council Fleet. This is Captain Kim. We are withdrawing our forces. Your ships will be released. Your crews are safe. But remember what happened here today. Remember that humanity gave you a warning. We said one word. Run. You should have listened. On tactical displays throughout the station, everyone watched as the human fleet began its withdrawal. The disabled council ships were left intact. Medical supplies and repair equipment were transmitted to them. The human forces could have destroyed everything, but instead they were helping. It was the most devastating demonstration of power the council had ever witnessed. Not because of the destruction, but because of the restraint. Chancellor Vornis sat down heavily. His three eyes looked at Minji with something new. Not arrogance, not dismissal, respect, and maybe a little fear. What happens now? He asked quietly. Minji smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. It was tired and sad. Now we start over. This time with honesty. The mining boom announcement spread across human colonies like wildfire. Within hours, thousands of civilians were signing up for transport to the newly discovered asteroid fields. The council paid no attention. After all, humans were known for their greed and their constant search for resources. It was exactly the kind of behavior they expected. Captain Do-hyun Kim stood on the bridge of the EDF Resolute, watching the evacuation progress on dozens of screens. Each screen showed a different colony, a different transport ship, a different group of civilians leaving their homes. They did not know why they were really leaving. They thought they were chasing fortune. That was safer for everyone. Captain, We have movement from the Council fleet, his first officer reported. 6 warships are adjusting position near the Andara colony. Do-hyun studied the display carefully. The ships were getting closer, but not in an aggressive pattern. They were watching, testing, trying to see if the human evacuation meant something suspicious. Send a message to the colony administrator, Do-hyun ordered. Tell them to broadcast complaints about the mining boom. Make it sound like the local government is upset about losing workers. His officer smiled slightly and sent the message. Minutes later, the colony began broadcasting angry messages about labor shortages and greedy miners abandoning their jobs. The council ships stopped moving closer. They were satisfied. Just humans being humans. On Unity Station, Dr. Hyejin Lee worked through the night, continuing to decrypt council communications. What she found made the situation even worse than they thought. The council had not just been planning to betray humanity. They had been actively sabotaging human development for years. Every piece of technology the council shared with Earth had been deliberately outdated or damaged. Hyejin found technical specifications that showed the truth. The defensive shields the council sold to humanity were designed with hidden weaknesses. The power systems had built-in limits. The weapon systems were 3 generations behind what the council species actually used. But there was something else in the files. Something that made Hyejin laugh out loud despite the terrible situation. The council had been so focused on sabotaging human technology that they never bothered to actually monitor what humans were developing on their own. The last council, intelligence report on human military capabilities, was from 15 years ago. 15 years. In that time, humanity had made breakthrough after breakthrough. The council had no idea. She immediately sent her findings to Commander Ji-won Choi, who was coordinating special operations across multiple sectors. Ji-won read the report with cold satisfaction. The council's arrogance would be their downfall. Ji-won was currently on a transport ship disguised as a civilian cargo vessel. Her team of 40 special operators was spread throughout the ship, all pretending to be miners or merchants. But their real mission was very different. They were going to council-controlled space stations that served as communication hubs. When the time came, they would disable those stations, cutting off the council fleet from their command structure. But first, they had to get into position without being detected. "Commander, we are approaching Station Helix 7, one of her operators reported quietly. Council security is conducting random inspections. Ji-won nodded calmly. They had prepared for this. Their cargo was legitimate mining equipment, their papers were perfect, and their cover identities were solid. The key was to act natural, act like people who were just trying to make money and had nothing to hide. The council security team boarded the ship. They were Crethians, a species that looked like armored insects standing on 2 legs. They scanned cargo containers and checked documents. One of them stopped in front of Ji-won, who was dressed in worn mining clothes and carried herself like someone exhausted from manual labor. "Purpose of visit?" the Crethian asked in a clicking voice. "Mining run," Ji-won replied, keeping her voice tired and bored. "We are picking up refined ore from Station Helix 7, then heading to the new asteroid fields everyone is talking about." The Crethian studied her for a moment, then moved on. The inspection took 20 minutes. Then the security team left, satisfied that the ship was exactly what it appeared to be. As soon as they were clear, Ji-won allowed herself a small smile. Her team was now inside the council's defensive perimeter. They would stay here, quiet and invisible, until the moment they were needed. Back on Unity Station, Ambassador Minji Park was playing the most difficult role of all. She had to act completely normal while knowing that the council was planning to destroy everything she was sworn to protect. She attended diplomatic dinners. She smiled at Chancellor Vornis. She discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges. And every moment she wanted to scream the truth at all of them, but she did not. She played her part perfectly. 2 days before the signing ceremony, Chancellor Vornis invited her to a private reception. All the major council leaders were there, celebrating what they believed would be their greatest achievement. They talked openly about the future, about how the galaxy would be better once humanity was properly controlled. One ambassador, a being made of crystalline structures that glowed with inner light, spoke directly to Minji. "Your species has such potential, Ambassador Park, but you are so young, so reckless. The treaty will help guide you toward proper civilization,
In a few generations, humans will thank us for our wisdom. Minji smiled warmly and raised her glass. To wisdom, she said. Everyone drank.
Minji watched them over the rim of her glass and thought about what was coming. These beings thought they were so superior. They thought they understood humans because they had studied them for a few decades. They had no idea what they were about to face. That night, she received an encrypted message from Captain Do-hyun. The evacuation was 97% complete. In 24 hours, every human civilian would be safe. The military was ready. Special operations teams were in position. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Minji sent back a simple reply. One word, proceed. The next day was the rehearsal for the signing ceremony. Minji went through the motions mechanically. She practiced walking to the podium. She practiced holding the signing stylus. She practiced smiling for the cameras. Everything had to look perfect. Everything had to seem normal. Chancellor Vornis was in an excellent mood. He kept talking about the historic moment they would share tomorrow, about how this would be remembered as the day humanity truly joined the galactic community. Your people must be so proud of you, Ambassador, he said. You have achieved something remarkable. Yes, Minji replied softly. Tomorrow will definitely be remembered. That evening, the 4 key humans had their final meeting before the signing. They met in the same secure room, but this time the mood was different. Everything was in place. The trap was set. Now they just had to spring it. Final status? Minji asked. Captain Do-hyun spoke first. All military assets are ready. The fleet is pretending to follow treaty deployment orders, but we have ships hidden in quantum slip space at 17 different coordinate points. The Council cannot detect us there. When you give the signal, we can emerge anywhere in the galaxy within minutes. Commander Jiwon Choi reported next. Special operations teams are positioned at 32 Council communication hubs and 15 supply depots. We can disable their entire coordination network simultaneously. The Council fleet will be blind and cut off from resupply. Dr. Hejin Lee smiled grimly. I have finished analyzing Council fleet tactics and capabilities. Their doctrine is 300 years old. They rely on overwhelming numbers and superior firepower. They have never faced an opponent who could match their technology or outmaneuver them. Our tactical AI has already calculated optimal engagement strategies for every possible scenario. Minji nodded slowly. Everything was ready. Tomorrow she would sign the treaty that the Council thought would destroy humanity. Instead, it would be the moment when humanity showed the galaxy who they really were. There is one thing I need to know, Minji said quietly. When this is over, how many Council casualties are we expecting? The room was silent for a moment. Then Do-hyun spoke. Our objective is not to kill them, Ambassador. Our objective is to shock them, to show them so completely that they never think about betraying humanity again. We will disable their ships, not destroy them. We will cut their communications, not slaughter their crews. The Council needs to learn that humans are strong enough to win, but wise enough to choose mercy. Minji felt a wave of relief wash over her. That was the right answer. That was the human way. They would defend themselves with overwhelming force, but they would not become monsters in the process. Good, she said. Because when this is over, we still have to live in this galaxy. We need to show them we are dangerous, but we also need to show them we are better than they thought. Jiwon stood and looked at Minji with respect in her eyes. Tomorrow, you sign the treaty. The Council will think they have won. Their fleet will move into attack positions, and then you will send one word to Captain Kim, just one word. What word? Minji asked, though she already knew. Jiwon smiled coldly. Run.